Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Big John here, National Housing Party. And I'm doubling up. I'm doubling up, but thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So I just wanted to quickly tonight just go through, we've obviously had the Reform Conference at the NEP in Birmingham, which I attended, and the Labour Party Conference. Now, I mean, the Reform Conference, there was a lefty protest at the end of right at the end of the day, but other than that, it went well. It were well organised. Security were good with us. We wasn't there protesting, but we got permission to film and talk to people. We talked to a few candidates here and there. But, I mean, coming out of when they finished the reform law, obviously, with being a profile on social media, I got some handshakes. And you reform lot can donate to us tonight. That's what you can. Get us some leaflets. So I'm putting my donation link in. If you think I'm doing a good job, and a few of you said on Friday, keep going, John, you're doing well and all that. So you can donate to us tonight instead of reform. That's what I'm saying. Obviously, we've been delivering leaflets. I've had some leaflets recently delivered to Brighton, but we're going places. And I want to be a local councillor, and I'm going to be a local councillor, guys. If we get any further than that, but that is me side, and I'm going to affect politics from the bottom upwards. It was a good day out. We managed to talk to several people, lots of people I knew already. I did introduce myself to Lee Anderson. It was funny because you know what Big John's like. He always wants something to eat. So I wanted to breakfast me. I've been travelling for 2 hours. So we went to the Wetherspoons in the NEC, which is expensive. I got a breakfast, and the Wetherspoons, the tables are outside the Wetherspoons, but it's inside a big building, a big walkway, and everyone's walking around. Obviously, I had to get ready, so I stood up, put my tie on. A few people were looking over, and we didn't know who were there. We just put my hat on, got ready, got all my stuff ready, got my camera out. Then Lee Anderson got up and walked out. So he's walked round. I've shook his hand. He's commented on my Union Jack stuff, said, I run my own political party. I'm definitely going to be a local councillor. And so I made a good impression for the party. We did some TikTok videos. I answered lots of questions. People were throwing out at me about the things like the European Court of Human Rights, the NHS, immigration, other things. So we did really all right. But obviously, at the same time, the Labour Party conference is going to. Now, last year, I think it was last year, me and Paul went to the Labour Party conference with Steve Bray were there. But this year, it was a lot more difficult for them. They had pro-Palestine protesters outside shouting free, free. So there's a lot more security. And as far as I've seen, someone's been arrested. And Keir Starmer, when he's been talking about free the hostages, he said free the sausages before he sorted it out and said free the hostages. So that has got him some joke memes coming out on X, I tell you, joke memes. But you know, what will they be talking about at these conferences? Obviously, Reform aren't in power. So they'll be talking about issues, immigration. They probably talked about the ECHR and things like that within the conference. There has been some big speeches put out online that you can watch. But what will the Labour Party be talking about at their conference? That's an interesting thing. Paul, what do you think Labour will be talking about? What will be their big thing to sort out the conference?
Well, the Labour Party conference started on Sunday, so they only last 3 days, isn't it? So it's more or less winding up now. Now, I watched Keir Starmer's speech today, and man, was that a shocker. We have a big problem in this country, and what is that problem? Racism. 3 times he used that word, attacking racists. Racist. Now, he talked about Southport, but he never mentioned the 3 girls that got murdered. He never mentioned little Elsie or little Alice or little BB. He was more interested in slamming racists. And this is the Labour Party's big bogeyman, isn't it? Anyone who stands against their agenda, and what really he's promoting, Keir Starmer, it's obvious, is the great replacement. He's taken power in order to destroy Britain. And for Keir Starmer, that means getting rid of Whitey, the white man. The white man is the enemy of the Labour Party. When they say racist, it's just a trope for anti-whiteism. And he talked about cutting net migration, not overall migration, but net migration. The more whites that leave, the happier Keir Starmer will be. He can bring in more Africans, more Arabs, more Asians from the subcontinent, more Chinese people and Orientals, and they can get on with the job of replacing us in our homeland, because that's what it's all about. Now, he talked about secure borders. Since Labour come in power, the boats, the number of people coming in the boats are skyrocketed. Labour haven't even acknowledged it. 1,000 people a day are almost coming in now. And Labour are actually just finding them hotel rooms, social housing, benefits, get them secure, no one's going to be deported. Now, yesterday, Yvette Cooper talked about clamping down on criminality on our high streets. Labour is going to exclude criminals from the high street. They're not going to be allowed in the city centre. They're going to get exclusion orders. Now, who is going to be in the city centre? Migrants who've come over on the boats are going to be put up in the hotels. And these are all these are all military-aged young lads, a lot of energy, nothing to do. They just go around pestering people, and we've seen what else they do. So what an absolute farce. They're going to clamp down on criminality in city centres by excluding people, and they're bringing in and housing these bogus, these invaders, immigrant invaders, by, the boatload, by the thousand. So it's all nonsense what Labour spoke. But he addressed two other issues which were really central to him as well, one of which was the Ukraine war. Labour is gung-ho for war. They want to allow the Ukraine to attack Russia with sophisticated weaponry, which we'll provide. This is really encouraging the Russians to attack us. This is really Britain getting more and more embroiled in this nonsense in the Ukraine, this mass slaughter, which is totally unnecessary and could have been avoided if NATO had shown a bit of common sense. But no, Keir Starmer, he wants war, he wants the great replacement. And his third big issue for this renewed England, this wonderful new Britain, which is going to stamp down on anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is going to become public enemy number one. I think anti-Semitism is a misnomer. It doesn't actually mean anything. Semites are the sons of Noah, of all people. All the people of the Middle East are Semites, sons of Shem. And so anti-Semitism is if you hate people from the Middle East. Nobody hates people from the Middle East. What's he really talking about, Keir Starmer? He's talking about criticism of Israel. Suddenly, we're not allowed to criticize Israel, no matter what Israel does, even if it bombs schools or hospitals or whatever. And so there's three groups the Labour Party are going to protect. The invaders, we're to see them as a blessing, the immigrant invaders. The public sector unions, of course, who treat these people. They're all grifters, the Labour Party. This is the truth. They're all lying grifters. This is about lining their own pockets. They're all making their money out of the public purse, and they're all going to sell their power to the highest bidder. And that's the nature of their constituency. The public sector unions, the immigrants, they've all come here to leech off the taxpayer. So the Labour Party are going to provide funds for these grifters. They're going to get rid of decent... he talked about generating economic growth. What, with high taxes, high immigration, high crime? There's not going to be any growth in our economy. We're going to have a recession. And you know, yesterday Rachel Reeves says there won't be any more austerity in Britain. She's going to have no money. We're going to have even higher interest rates. There's dark clouds now coming onto the horizon, and the Labour Party are not the party of competence. They couldn't run a government, and they won't run this government, and it'll be a shambles. And Keir Starmer is our enemy, and he's going to hurt us. And it's really the red light shining for ordinary British people in this society. We're going to have to stand up and overthrow these people. And the sooner the better. Steve, what's your opinion?
Well, very well said, my friend. When you're talking specifically about Labour, what do you think they're going to say? That entire party has always just been full of platitudes, right? What they think people want to hear. I saw a video the other day of David Lammy saying, I think it was something like, Britain is back. Britain is from what? First of all, I think what you also have to recognise is not, for example, in their manifestos that lead up to their campaigns. Once they might say things like, "We're not going to touch these taxes," people might go, "Okay, that's brilliant, that's cool," but yet it's important to listen to what they don't say. They will raise every other tax imaginable. But they haven't mentioned that bit, and that's what they're going to do, and that's where they get you. Now, you're very right in the sense that I feel like they are the promoters, the party that is promoting and provoking war. I also believe they're using, labels like far right and stuff. If anyone knows anything about Bolshevik history, it's pretty much a mirror image, guys, of how they operate. But I do just want to say as well, the whole criticism of Israel thing, they'll hide behind anti-Semitism. What that basically is a criticism of a global regime that has an agreement that they don't want anyone to criticize. This is the war movement going forward. What's the best way to get people not to criticize it? Oh yeah, call it anti-Semitism, and yeah, that'll be that. What I did think was really funny is what John said earlier when he was when he said sausages. It's like, all right, he obviously didn't have breakfast, did he? But yeah, that's it for me.
You're muted, John. You're on mute.
Yeah, so just a minute ago, Steve, just explain what you were saying about the playing the book. Keir Starmer's playing the book of Marxism, or the left. They have a way that they want everyone to be and all that, and there's a certain they play it like that. And you just said that he's playing that game. Is that right? Do you understand what I mean? Do you understand what I mean? You still there? You didn't hear no sound then? Right, you're muted. Right, not muted now. Right.
Right, I've got you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So what I was talking about is if you've ever researched things like the Bolshevik Revolution, the rise of Lenin, and Trotskyites and stuff like that, and the way that they implemented propaganda is really worth having a look at now, because there's nothing new under the sun, particularly in politics, really. They're running out of ideas pretty fast, I would say. And they're sort of regurgitating these old ideas. And if you look back into history, the rise of Lenin, what they opposed, what people weren't allowed to speak about, who was in power, what they enforced, even the propaganda, that they used to take people out of pictures and stuff like that. It all goes round in a big sort of circle. I genuinely believe, like the left political class, they have run out of ideas, and they're reverting to things like Marxism. Now Marxism, what I would have to give a little bit of credence to is, if you look at it, they played the long game. I've said this before many times. They played the long march through the institutions, right? They did it really, really slowly, injecting these things into our schools, into our education system, even indoctrinating the teachers, and then trickling it into the universities and stuff like that, and making it a way of thought that would have been opposed decades earlier, but now it's not opposed, and it's just normal. Now it's just got way out of control. But I've always said we can play the long march back, and I think that's what we're starting to do. So,
what I would say about that, Steve, is the Labour Party will not touch specifics. I mean, all the speeches I heard were just full of hot air. As you said earlier, platitudes. There were no specific policies. If you stripped it away, everything he said and everything they say is utterly meaningless. It's like, you know, we're going to have a better Britain. We're going to reform Britain. We're going to, you know, turn our back on broken Britain. It's all just empty rhetoric. There is no policies underlying it. It's meaningless what they say. But they're not being critiqued by the media. The mass media has been bought and is really just buttressing them. It's the same with the Democrats in America. I mean, Kamala Harris, she just spouts this meaningless crap all the time. Nothing specific, no real policies, won't address the real issues. How is Keir Starmer going to reduce immigration? He would not say. What policies is he going to use to reduce immigration? He would not say. He's talking about going for a growth economy. Kamala Harris talks about an opportunity economy. How is he going to achieve a growth economy? The only way you get an economy to grow is for people to invest in the private sector. And you need to cut taxes to make that happen. As Steve said, Labour have said this is not going to be tax asset, but they're going to put up a lot of what Tony Blair called stealth taxes, hidden taxes. They're going to tax pensioners. They're going to tax savings. They're going to tax returns on assets. They're going to, you know, capital gains tax, capital tax on the sale of houses. They're going to tax. But what this means is that the government is going to take a bigger slice of the national cake, and they're going to spend that money on their constituency, which is more immigrants coming in. Immigrants are going to need houses, they're going to need benefits, they're going to need free education, they're going to need free healthcare, they're going to have to be policed. They cost a lot of money. Each immigrant that comes in used to cost £50,000 per annum. It's probably 70,000 now. Altogether, millions upon millions of them who stay on benefits for life are going to cost this country tens of billions, maybe even hundreds of billions. I mean, it's just a dead weight on the economy. Now, besides that, they're going to spend money on the public sector. They're going to invest in hospitals, invest in schools, invest in training of public sector workers, invest in this. It's not investment. This is just waste. This is just the government throwing money at their mates, their institutions. Nothing will improve. Education will get worse under Labour because the type of things they'll be focusing on. He talked about one crucial issue today, Keir Starmer. What was that crucial issue that we need to concentrate on and spend money on? Climate change. Utterly bogus. It doesn't exist. It's a mirage. But this government has already committed £12 billion to spend on climate change overseas, through overseas aid. And now they're going to focus our energy policy, our education policy on dealing with climate change, on industrial policy, net zero, the green agenda. It's going to damage industry. It's just going to impose new costs on companies. It's the road to madness. We're seeing in Germany now, the gold star German economy is now very tarnished and is sinking quickly because they've gone down this road of green policies, which are utter nonsense. So everything Labour had promised is an utter and total lie. That it's a policy, it's a party that works on the basis of deception. They'll tell you something, we're going to improve Britain, but it's a lie. Britain's going to get worse. They tell you like they're going to make life better for working men and women. They're going to make it harder for working men and women. They say we're going to improve your healthcare and your education. They're going to get worse. What they do, they hand power over to the public sector unions, and they run these institutions, not in our interest, but in their interest. All these things add up. And these people, as I say, with Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner, Rachel Reeves, a lot of them, Yvette Cooper, the grifters, the low-level thieves and frauds who are just using this position that they've acquired to enrich themselves. They'll all leave their political careers multimillionaires, but they won't do a job for the country. But they've got a problem. And the problem is this. We're in a very difficult situation. The economy is turning down. The world economy is turning down. There's no victory in sight in the Ukraine. It's a mirage. Israel is under greater pressure than ever. Israel probably may not well survive what's going on in the Middle East. So they're heading for defeat after defeat after defeat. And they're going to have to repackage this and sell it to the British public. And that's where reform comes in. Are reform a genuine party of protest? Or are they just another safety valve for the establishment? John, hand that to you.
Well, we do have some insider information from the event. Somebody went there who we know, and I'll be blunt. I'm just going to be truthful. What got repeated to me, it was just an old load of windbag Tories in there. That's what I got told of somebody who went to the conference. But you know, I believe it's positive. And, you know, I wish people would understand my message because I've been getting some negative feedback because I've talked about Workers' Party and reform. Now, you're misunderstanding. It's not that I love these parties, but these parties running in elections is good for everybody. This is the kind of thing. If you've just got one issue, if you've got an issue with one issue, that a person has just one issue and you won't have nothing to do with them, then you're never going to go nowhere in life. You're never going to nowhere in life. We know, we're all here, but we don't all agree with everything that everybody says. Certainly me and Pat. But if just for that one grievance, then you're not going to talk to someone, then you're never going to go nowhere in life. I've talked to George Galloway. I don't know about anybody else. Has anyone else sat down with him? Has anyone else discussed when there was riots in Oldham? Paul would put his hand up. But I've talked to him. I like some of the stuff he says. But the main point is reform and the Workers' Party are taking votes off the Labour Party, the Tories, and bringing people together from all sorts. They're getting people motivated to vote. So that is good for me because it makes it easier for me to get a local council. See, I keep repeating this, and it's like people are dumb and they think, yeah, but George Galloway supports this. That's not what I said. I just wish people would get that down, and that's not me. So, you know, I think that reform and the Workers' Party are doing a good job. That's what I think. And they're doing a necessary job, a necessary evil, or a necessary job to get rid of the evil that's there. Whether or not you believe in them, but they are helping and making change in politics. So that's my sort of view on them. And I do think reform will do better. And in the last general election, we met a reform candidate in Oldham, and he only joined up a couple of days before nominations finished. And he didn't do much knocking, didn't do much leafleting. He got 300 odd votes because people had seen reform on the thing. And if that's a sign in Oldham, then that is a good sign for countrywide, I think. I think it's a good sign nationally. So they will do well in elections. They will do well in elections. And certainly the next general election, I think they'll have a couple of more members of parliament. But, you know, again, that's whether you like reform or not, that is helping the entire situation. That is helping all the situation right now at the moment. and it's making it easier for me as a local council candidate to get a seat in elections. And I have to explain this 100 times, but I'll explain it again. 3 years ago, when Gene Stretton was still alive, I would have to get 1,500 votes to secure my place, around that much. Now I have to get under 1,000. And who have I got to thank for that in Oldham? Got to thank two people, two parties, Reform and the Workers' Party. That's who I've got to thank, because they're making it easier for me to get a local council seat. So, you know, there is pros and negatives from both ways, but that's how I see it. And that's why I want people to vote and get politically active and to join in. Let's see what... No, they won't. They certainly won't. They certainly won't. I get that, Gerald, but it's just one of the evils that we're going to have to put up with. But overall, whether or not they accepted them kind of people in, it's making it easier for me to get my local council seat. So I'm not really minded whether they accept them in or not, as long as they're still running, because they will. It's easier for me to get my seat, and it's breaking up the vote. More people are politically involved. More people are getting voting. We met a young 26-year-old coming to the Reform conference. His first ever conference, and he said to us that he wants to get politically involved. This is what he said, and he was 26 years old. We also met another guy, Oscar. He was an immigrant. His parents were immigrants to Poland. He was born there. Then he's moved over here, and he can't stand the woke mob. And he was under 25 as well. So it was really good to see these kind of fresh people there. And I wouldn't say Oscar or the other lad were particularly middle class or anything. They were just young lads who've woke up and they want to see change in the system. So, you know, it's really good there for me. Good evening, everyone in the chat. If you've got any Reform lot watching, get some donations in for us, please. There's my PayPal at the bottom. You can email us. We do have bank details, but you have to get in contact through email. But please get a few quid into you. A lot of you said I'm doing well and keep it up. So I want you to give me some money for leaflets. That's what I want. So please donate if you're from Reform, and that will make me believe that you did sincerely say them things at the party. But you know, I did actually talk about cancel culture, and during the day I talked about issues like the European Court of Human Rights, the NHS people were asking for, and I mean, a lot of people start off with, "Oh, Margaret Thatcher, she's selling everything. She's selling everything." What the Labour Party never says is that they continued to sell off UK assets when they came in power, guys. So don't start on Margaret Thatcher and the Tories and leave it at that. Make sure you call out the Labour Party for selling our interests to people abroad. They've been just as much a part of it as anybody else in selling us out. And I'm sick of people thinking it's only one-sided. It never is in UK politics. Both sides actually have a lot to do with these things, whether they're in power or not. But again, it was a great day out, lovely conference. Big shout out to Tony, who come down to back me up with... we didn't expect any trouble. We wasn't there to make trouble. We was there to talk to people, to get some interviews. That's what we was there for. I made that crystal clear to the police and the security. The lefties turned up right at the end, which they made it a bit of a rowdy thing when everyone were going out. But that was irrelevant. We wasn't there for that, and we spent there all day since 10 o'clock. So big shout out to Tony, British Brotherhood, and through Tony, we're going to be doing some work in the Midlands area. But you'll see that when the time comes. And Tony's promised me his help and his support as well. So we'll get more into that. And
what's Steve's take on the Reform? That'd be interesting.
Go on.
Well, first of all, I think what John is saying is absolutely sound and spot on. Looking at the current political climate, I think it's really important for us all to look at unity within small parties. Because whatever your take might be, as he said, whether it be Galloway or us or Reform or other parties, you have to understand that we are there in opposition to the two things that people always complain about. Well, we're there to stop you voting for these two things. And if we can make leverage with this, whatever way we can, then that's great. And whether you agree on certain things or not, we need to get out of this, like, the whole two wings of the same bird thing. What I did want to ask, actually, regarding the Reform conference, because maybe so seldom do I watch the mainstream news or anything, but every time that I do see anything regarding Reform by the mainstream, they seem to just put lots of old people on there. And I'd like to ask you a question, John. Is there, regarding Reform, is there quite a young voter base there, do you feel?
No, that the insider that we said, he said old Tory, like Stooges, that's what he said. But he did, we did see some young people, but I couldn't say overall, but that's what someone said who went to the conference. And I've heard that a couple of times of people saying that it's full of them kind of people. But obviously, speaking to Oscar and the other lad who was making his journey up there, who was 26, they're a different kettle of fish. And like I said, these two people have just come politically active and they're really young. And I do know a couple of other Reform candidates who are fairly young as well. So, I do believe that they are taking a vote in, but the hierarchy is full of the old cronies in it, I'm guessing. And
I think that the demographics of the country now are a rapidly aging population, and the grey vote is probably the most crucial vote to win. So, I mean, I think Reform, obviously, it's inherited the UKIP mantle, and then it's taken the baton from the Brexit Party, and, it's the Nigel Farage gang, isn't it? And they're not really overly keen on young people, these old Tories. I mean, they like everything to be very controlled, very subdued. The leadership dominates. I mean, this is the thing. They exclude real nationalists or anyone who's controversial at all. They want to fit in with the mainstream media. They want to fit in with the status quo, the politically correct status quo. And they don't want they want to keep the controversy down to a minimum, which means really they haven't got sharp teeth. And they're not really that combative in the political arena. But Farage can pull in, he's done it before, and he can pull in 4.5 million, 5 million votes. But really, if they're going to get this Labour Party out of power, they're going to have to form some sort of alliance with the Conservative Party. So it's not really a radical movement. And what they're doing is sidestepping the big issue, the issue of the Great Replacement, the issue of mass uncontrolled immigration. How do you stop mass immigration? Now, the problem with the British is that we sign these international treaties and we take them ultra seriously. The rest of the world doesn't. The rest of the world just brushes them aside. But the British, stick to the book. And so we are part of the United Nations Convention of 1951, which basically leaves the door open for refugees. We must leave that convention. We are part of the European Court of Human Rights, which gives all these asylum seekers the right of appeal, the right of residence, etc. We've signed the Marrakesh Agreement. We've signed all these agreements which have opened up the border and made it very difficult to police. We need to withdraw from these agreements. This is the thing. When we were leaving the EU, and Farage used this slogan, taking back control, and Boris Johnson used it, we actually thought we were taking back control. And then we found out, no, we're signatories to a whole host of international treaties, which undermines our sovereignty. Now, we have to leave these treaties. We're not the guarantors of international conduct, and we're no longer the big player. We've got to protect our own borders. That's first and foremost. Our nation is in really serious threat. We're being overwhelmed. We can see that in our cities. The amount of immigrants coming in now, 1 million plus every year, year in, year out. It's just changing the demographic, changing the character of this nation. I mean, Donald Trump said that yesterday. If you let these immigrants in on this sort of level, the whole character of the nation is finished. And there's a rebellion now. There's a revolt right across Europe on this issue of immigration. And we in the National Housing Party have two fundamental building blocks. No more refugees, no more immigration. We've got to draw the line. We've taken far too many. It's time to say no more. Now, it's being taken further in Europe now. They talk about remigration. The AfD have just won 30 seats, 30% of the vote in a German state, Brandenburg, and they've done well in the last 3 elections, the AfD, and they've got huge support amongst the young people of Germany because they're sick and tired of immigration and all the problems associated with that, including housing, including the cost of welfare, including the steep rise in crime. And so people are in rebellion. We're seeing in France, the Front National are gaining power all the time. They're very close to taking control. We're seeing it in Holland. We're seeing Italy now getting really tough on illegal immigration and immigration per se. We've got to stop this flood into our country. Now, Reform are banging that drum, but they're not really, they're trying to dodge the tough questions. We in the National Housing Party say it clearly, I'll say it directly. We have to leave these international conventions. We have to stop all immigration, not an Australian punch-based system. We have to stop all refugees. We're not taking any more refugees. We've taken enough. That system has been used to the hilt. And really, we've reached the level now of our tolerance. I mean, Keir Starmer today was saying, we're a tolerant nation, we're a fair nation. We're not a fair nation. If we were a fair nation, these 100,000 people who have come across the channel from France, claiming asylum from France, would not be here. They would have been sent home immediately if we were a fair nation, if we were a just nation. We're not. We're a nation that is attacking the indigenous population, the white population, if you like, but also the immigrants that have come in the post-war period. The settled British population is under constant threat. Not only, at every level. We can see it now. The population is surging in Britain, and that is imposing huge problems here. The Labour Party have got no concrete policies. They haven't got the will to push those policies through, and they're not going to resolve any of these issues. They're just going to be an open sore, which gets worse and worse. So the door is open at the next election for new political forces. We are a new political force. We need people in Britain to wake up. We can only solve these problems politically. It's up. We have a democracy. It's up to the British people to join parties like the National Housing Party, stand as candidates, present an option, a choice to the electorate. Don't be pessimistic. Don't be black-pilled. Don't be negative. Unless we take this action, we will be for the forgotten people in our own country. We'll be at the back of every queue. I went to get my hair cut today, at a nice little cut, and the barber is 80 years old. And he said to me, he'd had he thought he had a minor stroke over the weekend, and he went to hospital, right? He had to wait 12 hours to be seen, 12 hours. This is how they're rationing resources in the NHS. In front of them were people from the Islamic world, people from Africa, people from the Indian subcontinent, who probably never contributed a penny into our NHS, but they were in front of him. He's an 80-year-old man in need of help, maybe suffering from a stroke. He's just left for 12 hours. He's paid into that system since he was 16, his taxes. The NHS was created as the National Health Service for the health of the British people. It's not the International Health Service. It's not for the whole world, but that's what it's become. Like so much of our welfare state, just as our cities are being colonized, our welfare state is being colonized, and we're losing it. We're losing control of the situation. We have to take action, guys. If you want to be pessimistic and say it's too late, well, then it is too late. We're finished. But if you believe there is a future for yourself and your family and your friends and your nephews and nieces, take action. Join the National Housing Party. Stand as a candidate. Help in the elections. Let's turn this round. Reform. Yep, I'm glad there's another option there. But are they speaking about the real issues? No, they're sidestepping them. And therefore, we've got to have a party that speaks the truth, because the truth will set you free. Nothing else, only the truth. Steve, what do you think?
Well, first of all, that was quite an inspirational little monologue you went on there. When you was talking about, the sort of replacement stuff, I want to touch on something that I don't feel like people realise goes on at the back of this. So, for example, whilst people have their social frustrations where, there's unfamiliar places, unfamiliar cultures in their present eye line, right? What this has been doing for years and years, that the Blairites did, right, is this is also a sell-off of our national resources. So, for example, I can tell you this firsthand, right, because I work on water. I'm essentially a water engineer, right? All of I'm talking Thames Water, I'm talking Essex and Suffolk, I'm talking all of these water boards, yeah? Their main investors are all Chinese billionaires. All of them. They're all Chinese billionaires. This is why we have this sewage leak problem, this stuff, because they are so far removed, right? Because they're Chinese billionaires that own them. They don't care about us, our national resources. They do own them, but this is why this stuff happens, because they disregard it. They don't really care. It never really goes back to them. It falls on the water board and the people that work for it. So what's you're talking about, no more immigration. I totally agree with that, because what it also does is, whilst you create all this dual citizenship stuff, you also create dual business and dual business opportunities. And for some reason, I don't know how it ever became legal to do this, but they sold off our resources, our water supply. And we now have Chinese billionaires that own our water supply, which is now why we have all these sewage problems and leaking into the sea and all this, unclean rivers and stuff. That's not a national problem. That's an international problem, because we sold them to them. So, when you're talking about, obviously the immigration problem is a direct thing that we can see. There's also things in institutions that should be nationally owned by us that are falling apart. Even the NHS, for example. This, and I would love for someone to give me an argument or tell me why on earth we give so much foreign aid to countries every year. Right? But I'm not even talking Ukraine. I'm not even talking Israel, right, where they can hide behind wars and weaponry and armory and stuff like that. I'm talking places like Gambia. I'm talking, why do we give foreign aid to Sweden? If you look into these things, it's all just a big money pit that goes round and round. And all these places that supposedly we give foreign aid to, none of these places get any better. And I don't know where any of this money actually goes. So I think, whilst we're talking about mass immigration of people, it's also happening to all of the institutions as well. It's also happening to the resources and all of the companies. All of the companies and stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It certainly does.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, all our institutions are being hollowed out. I mean, privatisation, we thought that was just going to mean private ownership. We thought it was going to mean better competition, more efficient management, and to a degree it was, actually, because the nationalised industries were very poorly run. They weren't run in the interest of the consumer. What we didn't realise it would be that international capital would just come in and buy them as assets, and asset strip it off, sell it off, milk them for all the money they could get and just sell them off. We thought it would be regulated, be controlled. And of course, the real culprit in all that was Tony Blair. Tony Blair had the power to stop all this, and yet he encouraged it. Because just as Keir Starmer is just a lying grifter, so is Tony Blair. So was Tony Blair. And these people enrich themselves. And you soon realize, and you've hit the nail on the head here, Steve, they're not interested in the consumer. They're not interested in making our lives easier. They're interested in lining their own pockets. Everything is being sold to the highest bidder. They've globalized everything. You see, once everything moves to the global level from the national level, there's no longer any accountability. We can't regulate or control these Chinese companies. We can't regulate or control these international finances. They get a grip of our assets and they're just wheeling dealing on the international markets. And we're forgotten. Now, the role of the people is to have control. I mean, Keir Starmer talked about this today, taking back real control of our borders and our economy, but it's all an illusion. He's not going to do anything. Keir Starmer is already in the pockets of the globalists. Keir Starmer, his mentor is Tony Blair. And Tony Blair did one thing with his control of Britain. He lined his own pockets. Tony Blair has got houses all over the world. He's got mansions all over the world. He's worth hundreds of millions of pounds. Now, it's same with the Democrat politicians in America, the likes of Obama, even Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. They enter politics with nothing and they leave either multimillionaires or billionaires. How have they managed to do that? Corruption. They've sold their nation to the highest bidder and they've got away with it because the same power which has corrupted them has corrupted our media, has taken control of our political parties, and has taken control of our institutions. And the reason for this really is that we've all been asleep. Too many of the British people, they've put their faith in these politicians and thought everything would be run well, instead of being active citizens, instead of making democracy real, getting involved and holding these people to account. These people will only behave themselves if we hold them to account, if they feel the heat, if we put them under pressure. And this is what voting was supposed to be about. This is what political organization, political parties were supposed to be about. It was about holding the powerful to account. And we failed to do that across the West because we've gone to sleep and we need to wake up. And this is happening now because we have to. Economically, we're under enormous pressure. Financially, we're under enormous pressure. Jobs are scarce. Wages are not rising. Cost of living crisis. Housing crisis. So many problems now in society. We need to reinvigorate our societies. And it's only through the political process that this can be done. I mean, we are a Christian party. So we believe there is a spirit of truth that is worth plugging into. And we do this not out of hatred for anybody, but for love for our country, love for God, love for truth, love for morality, doing the right thing, not the wrong thing. And we do it because we enjoy it as well. We get a joy out of this. We get a joy about speaking out on these issues and giving the British people an alternative. It's time now for the British people to stop listening to the Labour Party. I mean, the Tory Party, for me, is dead in the water now. The Labour Party will soon be dead. Once people realise it's a lame duck, it's absolutely useless. The Liberals are not going to achieve anything. Reform has emerged. As Reform got the true spirit to save this nation, I think it's a bit lacking. As John said, a lot of old Tory stooges, really. We need young blood. We need people with ideas. We need people with imagination. We need people who are prepared to fight. And this is what the National Housing Party is about. You've got to join the battle to save Britain, the battle for Britain. And that's what we're engaged in now, because there is a battle on now. And we're not prepared to lose it. And we're going to say to other people, just as we're being inspired to fight, join the fight, join up with us. We're an army, a growing army, and we can change this nation. We can change it. We can save it. John?
Thank you, Paul. We are an army, guys, and we are going to war. But you know where our war is? It's at the bloody ballot box. It's not smashing any mosques up. It's not burning any buildings down. We don't agree with that. Our war is going to be held at the ballot box. That's where we're going to take our first prisoners, at the ballot box. That's my war, guys, and I will be taking people down at the ballot box. Like I said, at the ballot box. We don't agree with any fighting or burning buildings down. We don't want to be like that. As a local councillor, and the experiences I've been through with rioting and riots that have happened in the UK, I'm sick of it, guys. It upsets me every time it happens. Doesn't matter what community does it. It just upsets me that our streets are being burnt and that. But again, my answer to that problem is our authorities and communities and council have never dealt with these issues between communities. I showed you that blueprint of Oldham, which is the same in Her Hills. Our councils and our government are so out of touch with working class people of all levels, and they don't deal with these situations. That's what's caused it. So, you know, I'm not on for kicking off and violence, but like I said, my personal war will be at the ballot box, and that's where we're going to do well. But anyway, thank you everyone in the chat, please. A new reform lot. I want people donating. If you've never donated before, donate to us. We've done over 50,000 leaflets. We've got more than a dozen set up people who are going to be running in our party in the next elections, if not more. We've got several people in London, but we need money for leaflets. We don't use any money for travelling, no hotel bills. I don't get fancy money and been given free shirts and suits and everything. I get all this myself, but we want money for leaflets, and that's what we want you to do. Please donate to us so we can get more leaflets. Like I said, we've done more than 50,000. We just had some thousands delivered to Brighton last week. Thank you to Dave for telling us that. And we're moving places, and we've been down there. There's a lot of action going on. We're going to be working across the country, as far as Scotland and as far as Northern Ireland. So please get some money into us so we can get some leaflets. That's all our money goes on, is leaflets. We have bought a couple of banners in the past, but that 99% of our money goes on leaflets. So that's what we want. So please donate to us. There's a donation link at the bottom. A few quid, please. You know, and like other people, we are doing stuff and we are going places. We're running in local elections, guys. We don't just say we're going to do when we don't do. We actually are running in elections. So, and I'm very confident of my seat eventually. So please donate to us. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you, Gerald Fisher. Daniel Thomas, I've not seen you on before, but thank you for joining us. Everyone else in the chat, White Knight, thank you, mate. You've always been around. Gary Granato, you've been around as well. Thank you, mate. Mark Williams, God bless you, mate. God bless you. Friendly Bouncer, I'm thinking that's EP. I'll get you on the Late Night Veteran Show EP eventually. But yeah, so please get donating to us. And if you're a Reform member and you send me Friday, I want a donation, please. It's only fair for me to ask. You know that we do things and you know that we're going places. But yeah, it's been a very interesting week. It's been difficult, actually, because I've obviously been showing the party line at the conference, and then I was doing political stuff and party stuff down in Cheam. We sent our mate Phil away. We poured his ashes into the River Thames on Saturday, along with one of his favourite pets that passed away as well. And so Belinda was been really good. And I thank you, Phil. Because you believed in me, Phil. That's what you did. You believed in me. And you've been following me and supporting me all this time. I know you're up there looking down on me, but God bless you, mate. God bless you. But yeah, we're coming up to the hour. Steve, any last words?
Yeah, all I'd like to end on, guys, is I just think it's integral for everyone to think about. If you do really want to break down the two-party dichotomy, it's absolutely pertinent that there is unity within smaller parties. We need to work together to bring down them first, and then there can be, maybe some minor squabbles here and there, but it's better than what we already have. So I would just say the main point of contention would be push for unity within smaller parties that aren't of the main two. God bless and thanks for having me on.
Paul?
Yeah, I'd just like to back that up because it says in the Bible, where there is unity, God commands a blessing. There's been too much friction on the alternative in the right wing in this country. And I think that's because there's been too much of focus on hostility and negativity and not on positivity and love. There's a lot of love in this party amongst the brethren, the sisters, the people of this party. We need that love in our nation. I grew up in a Britain where love was taken for granted. Love in the family, love in the neighborhood, patriotism, love for your country. We need to get back to that right spirit. And this is why we're a Christian party, because it's not just about exposing the corruption, exposing the lies, exposing the fact that the people who rule over us are actually our worst enemies and we have to overthrow them. It's about showing an alternative light in the darkness for people to draw close to us, because we need to have a voice which is amplified across this country, which speaks for the British people. We've got to defend our nation. We've got to have real policies to defend strong borders, to keep our assets under British control, to stop this country being fleeced, to stop the workers of this country being fleeced through high taxes, and to protect our public services, especially our health service and education service. What are they teaching kids in our schools? It's really important that we have traditional morals, traditional values. We raise our kids to know that they are loved and to love their fellow pupils and to love their country. That's the nation I grew up in, Britain. I'm not being sentimental. That was the spirit I grew up with, and it needs to be rekindled again. All this radical left-wing woke nonsense has damaged a lot of people. And we need our families, we need children. We need people to get married, start families, raise families. This culture of death, which goes around abortion, it goes around sexual perversion, that needs to be taken out of our culture. And the culture of life has to be brought back in. This is what the church used to fight for in this country tenaciously. This is what we've got to start fighting for. This is why when you listen to these conventional politicians, they all seem so hollow, because they're not fighting for these crucial spiritual things, traditional values, the traditional family, love of children, love of nation. These are fundamental things. And if we don't actually hold on to these, we'll never save our nation. But if we do hold on to them, we'll get the right policies to save Britain. We'll get a political party which is motivated, which will stand in local elections like the National Housing Party of the UK, and we'll start winning because people will find us attractive. And we're going to go forward. We're going to offer this country an alternative. And I hand over to Big John because he's leading the charge.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Please donate, guys. We are going places. We've run several elections across the country. You can look that up online. You see that I'm active all the time. If you want change, then support us. Support us by donating, supporting us by joining us and running as a candidate. If you want to be a paper candidate, if you're not ready to fully get into it, you can be a paper candidate for us. So your name will just go on the list and that's it. You won't have to deliver any leaflets or anything. But if you are confident, but sign up to be a candidate, you'll get help. You'll get help. We are working. We're going to try and organise working with other groups and stuff like that to get support. And like I said, I met Tony in Birmingham on Friday, and Tony's going to support me in the Midlands. And I've got a couple of ideas coming up in the Midlands, a couple of areas that I want to get down and target and get door knocking and try and get some candidates. These areas I've been to before, guys, so I'm pretty good with them. So that's up and oncoming. I'm streaming tomorrow night. I'll be streaming Friday. And of course, we have our weekly stream every Tuesday, 8 p.m. But thank you very much. And please donate to National Housing Party. We are going places and we are doing things. God bless
Cheers,
everyone.
guys. Good night now. Cheers, guys. Thank you.